Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for finding time to join our webinar on international financial and corporate PR. My name is Sergii Pershyn. I'm originally from Kharkiv, but currently I'm based in New York. This is our agenda for today. After the brief introduction of our agency, we're going to talk about different kinds of media. We're going to talk how to work with international media efficiently, how to raise your visibility, how to build and more importantly, not to lose trust. And we'll also touch upon some case studies in terms of crisis communications. After the presentation, we will be happy to answer your questions. And I know that we have a great mix of guests today. Some of you are my colleagues engaged in PR directly. Some of you are more on the operational or management side of the business. But I hope that each of you will find something useful in our presentation today. Let me briefly introduce the agency I'm working for. It's called Snow Hill, based in London, where we have our biggest team. As I said, I'm in New York, and we also have a colleague in Dubai, Abu Dhabi. What differentiates us from other agencies is the vast experience of the team. So most of us are senior PR and IR people who have been working in the industry for more than 15 years, 20 years. And it's also a great mix of people because some of us are former journalists, some of us are former in-house or agency PR and the IR person. We also have an investment banker who is helping us when we help with, we do communications around fundraising and other deals. And we also, as a team, work together for many, many years. Sam, who hopefully will join us soon, and I worked together for about 12 years, I believe. And here's our brief bios. I guess Sam is in the meeting now, and that's what happens when we work in a PR agency, when some clients can have urgent tasks, but hopefully he'll join us. But Sam is super experienced. He's based in London, originally from the US, and he worked in-house as a head of IR. And together we also work on lots of deals, including IPOs, fundraising, M&A, and everything in between. And then, as I said, I worked with Sam for more than 11 years in IRPR, and my background is similar. While Sam maybe is more focused historically on IR, I've been working in PR more. But as you know, in financial communications, those two things often go together. This slide is about international media. I believe that PR people know those publications well, but still I just want to briefly talk about it. So there are financial media, which cover stock market, investment deals, and are widely read by investment community. So here in New York on subway, you can still see people in the morning reading Wall Street Journal and Financial Times in print. So print is not dead. And other two news wires, Bloomberg and Reuters. They cover more like some deals and some flash updates on the market. Second section is similar. It's business publications. They tend to cover same stories, but less of financial market, more like success entrepreneur stories. Some profiles of companies, interviews with management, but basically they cover more or less same deals as financial media. And then there's technology and VC media. As you know, they cover just startups and some fundraising. And so I believe that for VCs who are present here today, those tech media are really relevant. Of course, there are industry media, like covering different sectors, fintech, agriculture, and so on, which are not on this slide. But why I put it here? Because it's crucial to understand when you have a news, where to pitch it. Because Bloomberg and the Financial Times won't cover a small fundraising deal. And for that, you can go to Crunchbase News or Fast Company. But when such big media outlets as Wall Street Journal, Financial Times cover the whole sector in Ukraine, like tech sector in Ukraine, you want to be featured there. And we're going to talk about it a bit later, but it's important to start introducing yourself to those even big and scary media. Of course, they're getting thousands of pitches every day, but still, if you want to get featured in some big articles about the VC investment climate in Ukraine, which are happening from time to time, you want to be known by those big media. And here we're talking about different types of media coverage. Earned media is a coverage that is generated naturally. So it's news coverage when you distribute your press release, when a journalist knows you and writing something about Ukraine and asking you for comment, so you can be an expert there. Of course, there are interviews, and features is a bigger article about business overall on larger scale. Then sometimes we don't have news to share, and it's fine, but we still want to be featured in the media, to be seen. And a great opportunity to do that is to draft an op-ed, kolonka. So it's thought leadership about some timely topics, and many publications from TechCrunch to others include that. Although there are some specific publications for that, like you can see a World Economic Forum. It's this big event, but they also have a website with lots of op-eds from opinion leaders around the world. And of course, there's a sponsor content, and to be honest, I'm personally skeptical about it. I feel that it can generate some short-term results, but overall, we recommend our clients to engage in earned media, because I'm going to talk about it on the later slides. And on the right side, you can see some examples of what I just covered, interviews and op-eds. And by the way, those are all our clients whom we help with media. Yeah, on this slide, we discuss difference between earned and paid media. And honestly, we don't recommend our clients to pay for articles, and we don't usually do that because of the things you can see there. In my opinion, if you pay for something and you get just one publication and it sits there on internet, but there's nothing from it. There's no continuous communications work around it. But when you are building your relationship with journalists, when you generate some news coverage, when you talk to some prominent media on live TV, you have real media strategy, and in the long term, it will be easier for you to get more coverage, because when you pay for an article, it's there. The journalists will not follow up with you most of the time. But when they know that you are an expert in your sector, or you have some interesting opinion, or you have some great news, they're going to be coming back, and other people will see it and come to you as well. On this slide, we discuss why VCs and companies in general usually engage in international PR. I guess the main reason is just to raise your awareness, to be prominent. And in the past 2 years, I've seen a spike of media activity from Ukraine. People want to get known by the world. And in terms of investment climate, I guess that we can say that Ukraine has appeared on global investment map. Of course, it's clear that the reason for that is set, it's war. But still, there's an opportunity to present yourself to a global community, so that after the war is over, you already have some solid media profile. Other reasons, also more or less obvious: attracting new investors, entering some new geographies, supporting your portfolio companies, and generally building trust and credibility with media. On the right side, you can see some examples. The first one is an N1 profile at TechEU. Then we see a news from UVCA and an article in Fortune. But what I want to highlight here, and what I'm going to talk about more on the next slides, is that you cannot just, most of the time, you cannot just send a press release to different medias and expecting that your news will be covered, because it takes some time to build relationship with media, to get known, even without any news or comment, just introducing yourself, so that when something appears, media can cover you. Here I want to talk about some ways to get known even without news, or even without talking to a single journalist. So of course, currently many companies are using their own websites or social media to share news. I would say that in the US particularly, LinkedIn is the social media people use most of the time, sharing news, tagging other people. It's not just to get someone into your contact list, it's communicating with others. Of course, there is Twitter, but as you know, there's so much controversy around Twitter recently. Still, I see that many companies duplicate their social media coverage on different platforms. So they can share some longer read on LinkedIn, and then tweet a short tweet on the same topic. Of course, there's Crunchbase, PitchBook, and other websites where you can and should create a profile, make sure it's updated, because sometimes they just get information from internet and it can be not correct, or maybe they miss something. So if you want to disclose the information, you can update your profile on those platforms. And you can, of course, go to events. I know that it's harder at this point of time to do in-person events, but there are some online webinars like this one. And this all doesn't involve journalists, more or less. But speaking about journalists, my recommendation is building relationships with them early on. And even before you have news. On the right side, you can see what I call the ideal news pitch. So the first point is just introducing yourself to a journalist without any news, just saying that we are VC of this scale from Ukraine, and like if you want to talk to us, we are happy to do that. And then if you have a news like investing in a new company, raising funds, or something big, you can come back to this person and say, we're going to have a news, and if you're interested to cover, we can send a press release on the embargo. But what I also recommend doing with some really relevant and high-profile media for you is offering your management, your founders for an interview, because everyone will get a press release. It will be online and people will see it. But if a journalist has direct access to some high-profile speakers to get some additional details, which will be featured in the news coverage of the press release, for them it's more interesting. So they will be more motivated to talk to you and to cover the news. And then you set a date for embargoed press release, and just share the press release beforehand with media you trust and who are high profile, so that they have time to write up the news, and then just press publish button when the time comes. Here are also some practical tips about how to raise your visibility. And I think that you also want to not just share the news, but become expert and an opinion leader in your sector, and be part of global discussion. On the right side, you can see some examples how some of the most prominent global media are covering Ukraine tech sector. And this is interesting because sometimes, again, our clients don't have any news. But they can fit into some global topic. For example, women in business, or fintech, or some green trends. And so even without having any news, media can come to you and feature you in those articles. But again, it's important to make sure that media knows about you, and that's why you want to introduce yourself, to start talking earlier. And on the right side, yeah, you can see that Ukraine tech sector, of course, has been on the radar of global media, of global investors recently. And here are also two examples about sharing your expertise, being an opinion leader. On the left side, you can see ICU statistics featured in the Wall Street Journal. So it's not a direct comment, but still it's cool that you can publish some interesting data and then get featured in the Wall Street Journal when they start writing about your sector or just Ukraine. On the right side, you can see quote, and it's an interview with Andrei Koloduk, where he's sharing his expertise about the future of Ukrainian economy and tech sector. It's an interesting slide about how to introduce yourself to media using peers. For example, you remember that 10 years ago, everyone was Uber of something, Uber at something. There was like food delivery, like Uber in food delivery, Uber in TV, which is Netflix and stuff. So people like this example of Uber as a disruptor who's changing their industry, or and any industry can be changed. And so then they wanted to be an Uber of anything. So if you Google Uber off, you will see lots of examples. But on the right side, you can see that not all of those companies succeeded. Only 3.8% of them became unicorns. A quarter of them are gone. And after a while, people got bored of this comparison, and actually Uber got some bad PR for many reasons. And so the new startup pitch was, we are not Uber, we are different. So no one is talking about Uber anymore. So what I'm trying to say is that sometimes you want to use an example of a peer just to help media and investors understand who you are. But sometimes it can backfire and be not helpful. Yes, and that's why you want to differentiate from your peers. You want to maybe use an example of them, but then say why you are better, why you're different. And on the right side, you can see at the bottom, you can see how Preply, which is essentially peer to a much bigger company, Duolingo, was able to use this peer example to get coverage. Of course, it's a successful company by itself, Preply, but it helps to people on the West understand who they are based on example of a much bigger competitor. And on the top right side, you can see a LinkedIn post from Flyer One Ventures. And what's nice there is that they disclose some data, what might be unusual to disclose more data, but what I'm trying to say here is that they are trying to differentiate themselves from the industry, from the sector, and be different. And that's how they want to get more visibility. Here we talk about trust, when you talk to media, when media covers you, so they lend in you their trust, because if a journalist from Bloomberg covers your story, it means they trust you. And even the sole fact that your name, your company is featured in Wall Street Journal, some other prominent media, when investors read it, they know that you are credible. And it's especially important for international investors and international financial community, because before the war, sadly, they had not been aware of many things going on in Ukraine, while they were aware of corruption and other negative stories. So it's important to even be featured in articles in some big global media outlets, so that when investors or just investment community are thinking about Ukraine, they remember your company name. And while building trust takes time, Losing trust takes seconds. We all know the example of Elizabeth Holmes from Tyrannus, who recently was jailed. But interesting that she went to jail not because she was lying to the customers who were getting incorrect blood tests results. But she went to jail because she defrauded investors, and especially in the US, this is a big crime, even a bigger crime than actually lying to your customers. And on the right bottom side, you can see an interesting tweet from the founder of The Information, a prominent tech and VC publication. So we don't know all the details of the story, but she's referring to some PR agency which was not transparent with them. Maybe they promised to do something for them, but they didn't, or they went to a competitor, which is most likely. And so they lost trust in that agency and maybe even their client. And you can imagine that you cannot expect coverage for this company in The Information anytime soon. And here are some tips how to build trust and credibility. So, of course, you need to be transparent. You also need to be knowledgeable and have some interesting ideas for the media, so that they come to you when they need some comments or want your expert opinion, even at off-record level. And on the right side, maybe 4 pillars of how to be successful in communicating, especially around some tough issues. So we're all thinking about what we say. So we have talking points for the speakers. We have our key messages and press releases, but we sometimes forget about 3 other pillars which are actually important. So it's important when you're delivering your messages, especially in crisis. You need to be fast, but also if there was some fundraising round and you announce it 6 months after it happened, there might be less interest in it from the media side. Then we talk about how you say it, and here we talk about the tone of voice. We are talking about who the speaker is, and so the way you deliver your message. And finally, your audience. We understand that consumer PR is very different from when you want to deliver messages to some government officials. And I want to refer to an example of Norfolk Southern Railway Company. It's a US company which earlier this year, their cars with some toxic materials derailed. And so those toxic materials got into soil and air and water at some small community. And this company failed at every of those 4 pillars. So in terms of what, they just disclosed some basic information without any details first. And it took some time and lots of media backlash before they actually told what happened in more details. Also, they were slow to react and not very active, not very transparent in their communications. So they failed at when. And they also failed at how, because for the first 2 weeks, it was just press releases from the media team. The CEO was not involved. And so people thought that he was hiding behind his media team and doesn't speak to anyone, which was, of course, bad reputation. And finally, who the audience was. It's a public company, so they cared about the stock price, they cared about the government, fines and stuff. So they primarily addressed those audiences, forgetting about people, because it was a small community where all this happened, and people living there didn't know what level of toxicity was there. So this company forgot or failed rather at addressing local communities. And here it's more about crisis communications. So some practical tips on the left, and of course, every crisis is different, but it's important to be prepared. What we recommend to our clients, especially those who are working in some industries which are kind of where crisis can happen often. So it's important to have a crisis communications plan. even starting from a team, a special team who will be engaged in crisis comms, and even plan what happens first and second with some messages, some specific steps, issuing press release, making some social media posts and stuff. On the right side, you can see a story from Axios about Silicon Valley Bank, which is, I guess you know well, what happened recently. And it's a classic example about a company failing at their communications. So they, as you might remember, the issue started with them needing to raise some additional funds. But the way they presented the story, the way they wrote the press release was not pretty efficient, not pretty good. And investors who read it and their clients, when they saw the message, they thought that the bank is in crisis, and they rushed. So there was a classic bank run. So they rushed to withdraw their money, and step after step, the bank collapsed. And interesting that we and like management always thinks about the operations, and PR is just helpful to promote your business. But in fact, it's not. It's not just that. It's not being good at communications and PR can actually destroy the entire business. And we know lots of such examples. Yes, and here we talk, some of it I already covered. It's more practical steps about how to set up crisis comms plan at your company or at your portfolio companies. It's just you need to understand that when crisis happens, there's no time to think about what you're going to say, who's going to say it, and how you're going to say it. You just need to react so fast that the market doesn't get scarier. And if you are slow to report, to communicate, or are not sharing the full picture, what happens is that media, journalists, clients, whoever are trying to come up with their own theories. And their ideas might be super wrong and might hurt you more than if you disclose everything like it happened. So as I said, having a plan of who says what and when with some clear messages is crucial. Our team has been involved in crisis communications many times, and most of the time the companies were coming to us within the first 24 hours, and then we had some sleepless nights trying to help them to avoid the crisis, or just mitigate some other risks, because companies understand that if you do it after 24 hours or after some period of time, sometimes it's an hour, you lose the momentum, and the story is alive in media without your participation. So you need to really engage and be active in your communications. And we are approaching the end of our presentation. And here I want to talk about opportunities in this tough time for the country, for many of you, but also time when it's important to build your profile. So we've been seeing elevated media interest, international media interest in Ukraine, in stories from Ukraine, because of the war, of course. But it's important to understand that the war is just maybe a reason they pay attention to it, but it should be just first step. And you can see on the right side this the mentions of war. But my belief that you need to use this moment of time to build your media profile, to get to know journalists, share your news, so that after the war is over, after the victory, companies will be getting the same headlines, but without the word war in it. So talk to media, introduce yourself, write draft op-eds, share your opinion, so that after the victory, you already have a strong profile. And I believe that especially in investment terms, it's important to to use this moment to establish yourself as a reliable co-investing partner, because we already seen that lots of international investors are looking into Ukrainian companies. And when you build your profile as a reliable partner investing in Ukraine already, they might work with you together to co-invest together. And you can see some examples. Again, it mentions war, but it shows that there's some investment in Ukraine. And there was an article just yesterday in the Wall Street Journal, an interesting and big feature about investors already investing in Ukraine. One of the reasons is because the valuations are low, but also they understand that they need to be the first ones to invest, because after the victory, the valuations go up, and it's a good moment to do that. And there are interesting charts. The article is interesting. I recommend reading it in full. But interesting charts showing that investment climate and economies are actually getting better. So you can see that the last quarter was the first one with some real economic growth. It's quarter on quarter. And on the right side, you can see the FDI volumes, which are not rising, but they are more or less stable, and they exist. Thank you for your time. And if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. Either you can talk or you can send some questions in the chat.
Thank you, Sergei. Any questions, guys? Natalia disappeared. I believe we should. Yeah, Irina, go ahead.
Доброго дня. Напевне, щоб довго не писати, я краще задам голосом запитання. Мене звати Ірина Кравців, піар-менеджер компанії Коса. Хотіла би попросити ще доповнити про те, як зав'язати перший контакт з журналістами, як познайомитися, які кращі канали комунікації використовувати, писати на емейл чи намагатися добитися до них у соцмережах. Одним словом, все, що ви можете доповнити з цього приводу. Дякую.
Дякую, Ірина, за запитання. Якщо можна, я англійською відповім.
Так, звичайно.
Так, of course, there are different ways, but there are some things you can do. For example, if you are active on LinkedIn and you are interested in some journalists and you saw an article interesting for you, you can summarize it in your LinkedIn post and tag this person, and they'll see that you tag them, and they will most of the time they're gonna check your profile. And same on Twitter, you can do that on Twitter as well. If you're using Twitter, they're gonna check your profile, and maybe you can even add them as a contact. Sometimes what I personally do, if my client story is relevant to what the journalist is covering, I write an email also referring to the previous coverage and saying, I read your article about this and that, and by the way, we are doing similar things, and if you want to talk about it, we are happy to introduce you to our management and such things. But of course, I guess the one thing you would like to avoid, if it's a really high profile and relevant journalist, is just sending a press release without any introduction, or just it's like the first communication with them, because you can imagine that Bloomberg journalists receiving hundreds, if not thousands, press releases per day, and they just keeping it. So yeah, I guess social media is a good way when you don't just share a huge press release with them first, but you just introduce shortly and they have time to respond to you. It's a good chance. But yeah, and referring to articles is also a good opportunity. Ще питання?
Volodymyr, you have a question, I guess, yeah? Are there some tools to search for journalists and media? You mean
Yeah,
instrumental?
You mean finding relevant journalists for you? I guess like the old school approach is just Google and see who's carrying what, and then finding their contacts. But there are some specific platforms. We are using the one called MacRec. It's a database of journalists and media, and you can look into it. It's called MUCKRACK, MacRec. And so you can there's lots of filters. You can find people by geography, by their focus. You can search some keywords and find articles. And there are a bunch of those services such as Roxhill. But usually when we are compiling a database of media contacts for our new client, we just use a mix of those platforms, but Google works well if you are very specific in what you're looking for. You can find some names. It just they don't only have email contacts, which is a struggle, as many PR people know, to find an email for a person. But such paid platforms as MacRec can help you with that.
Great. A question from me.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any shortcuts? Are there any hidden opportunities to reach out to the interested, to the journalist, or to the any, I don't know, mass media I'm interested in, except bribing, except except taking him to the dinner and so on? Any, I don't know, any hidden communities, something like this?
It's an interesting question, and I would say that bribing and even taking for lunch sometimes doesn't work, because I know that big publications such as Bloomberg and Financial Times, they have a policy that you cannot pay for their lunch, or you cannot give them a present which costs more than, I know, $50. So they're not allowed to accept. You cannot even pay for their flight, for example, if you want them to come. So I don't think it works. But as I said, I guess there are no shortcuts, to be honest. But what I find the most efficient is just, as I said, introduce yourself. Try to just start talking to them before you want to share something, some news with them, just to get to know them. And also events. If you happen to be at some industry event where media is present, just talking to them at some networking reception. Of course, it's easier to do in person, and I know that it's hard now, but hopefully there will be more in-person events where you can just grab someone by the shoulder and introduce yourself first, and then get in touch with them later if you have some news.
Got it. Actually, I'm asking because of our delegation to the United States in the nearest future. Mm-hmm. Last time we tried to reach out to several tech mass media, but we failed. Mm-hmm. And thanks to the exhibition itself, they helped us with the initial PR. Mm-hmm. So we had to, in this case, we had to wait for some journalists, but we would like to prepare ourselves. That's why I asked this question. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, and in this case, sorry, Dmitro, in this case, you need to be
interesting.
Yes, interesting, but also you need to be careful and very focused on finding relevant people who already cover Ukraine. And thankfully, these days, there are lots of people at different publications who already wrote articles about like Ukrainian tech, Ukrainian VC, Ukrainian investment climate. And those people will be more likely to be interested in your story.
And another one question. Today, you told us about the traditional mass media, famous mass media, first-tier mass media. But as far as I know, so-called influencers are taking their part in this big market. I'm recalling this case with Robinhood, when some influencers made the market to make mistakes. Yeah. What about this? Is it so influent as we are expecting, or it's just a hype or something?
I believe that I'm engaged in financial communications, and you guys are engaged in VC and investment. And I believe that still in our sector, it's not that relevant. And your example about Robinhood is good. It's interesting, but it's pretty unique, and it was a unique period of timing story, and it showed us that reputation can be destroyed or built if there are lots of people talking about it. But it was interesting. It was on Reddit, so it's like a forum where people share their ideas. And we actually do use Reddit when, especially for our clients in fintech, because there is a big fintech community on Reddit. But you should be very careful with them, because if they don't like you, they're gonna kill you. So you need to understand how they feel, what they think, and be transparent with them. I know many examples when people failed at Reddit as well, where they tried to talk to the community, but the community didn't like them. So I would say that influencers are not that relevant in our sector yet. But you're right that I covered some big and high top tier media. But what I also wanted to know that there are smaller media which focus on some specific industry. And if you have low visibility on Google, you don't have many interviews or coverage, it helps, but you need to build it so that people go to Google and see your name. So it helps to start talking to those smaller niche publications who are more motivated to cover your story, so that you already have some news coverage, some media presence. So instead of going to Bloomberg right away, just going to some small publication helps just to get some searchable results on Google.
Thank you. And following the previous question, can we say that there are some cases of blackmailing? I mean, several cases this year we heard about them when some tier 2, tier 3 analytic company comes up with a report, and this report is unpleasant, and according to this report, market is reacting to these reports negatively. Is it a special proposed action or something else?
Yeah, it's interesting. An interesting question, and of course, each situation is unique. But in referring to your example, when someone published something not good, it might not be blackmailing; it's just something negative for the market, right? And so you might want to, if you have a position and you want to be heard, you can either go on social media and refer to it, or you can even see who covers this report, or who might cover in terms of journalists, and come to them and say that we have a different opinion. We believe we have data, we have some evidence that those people are not correct, and we want to share our comments if you want to feature us. And actually, journalists, good journalists, like a balanced story. So if they have one report which is negative, they would also want to have a different position, because it makes the article more interesting. And if you can share your expertise, it's nice. And that's again why you want to be known by those journalists who cover your sector.
There is a question from Vladimir in chat. Check it, please.
Similar web. I mean, you can get information from there, but I believe I use it a bit, but I use it more to understand the scale of media. They have this metric called UVM, which shows you their audience, because you cannot understand. Sometimes you cannot understand if it's a small media. Some of them have 3 million, some of them have 40,000, and you want to get the scale. So that's what I use it for. But as I said, if everyone can see the chat, I can just write to. Yeah, those two platforms are helpful to find journalists. Oh, sorry, it's MacRec. Yeah.
One more question. As I understand, at the Western market, I mean, Western Europe, Northern America, public companies are pretty vulnerable to different threats. I mean, yellow press, different intakes from different concealed sources, and so on. How to protect their good name, how to protect their brand from all these threats. You told about to be in touch with journalists, to be in permanent connection with similar mass media with good reputation, but how to protect themselves forever, I would say.
I see. Yeah, you're right that public companies are different because they are vulnerable to some media reports, and because their stock price can go down pretty fast. At the same time, they're limited by what they can say. And I worked with dozens of public companies, and they have usually they have pretty strict legal department who wouldn't allow them to say much or even to use a CEO as a speaker. But again, I feel that each case is unique. Sometimes you cannot ignore reports which are definitely not true, and you want to go public on the website. Usually it's a short note because it's written or edited by lawyers, and where they say that we deny those allegations. But at the same time, you need to be careful, and if it's a small, you need to understand what's going on, because if it's some small report, just referring to it can raise attention to it. This Barbara Streisand effect, as you might know, it's not about financial PR, but it's like sometimes attracting more attention or denying allegations can make a small story a big one.
Got it. And vice versa.
Yeah.
Do any public companies use these tools? I mean, sudden unexpected news or some kind of bad PR to attract more attention to them?
In my view, it's not common. Also because you want to have some clear reputation and build trust with journalists. And if someone reveals that you did it on purpose, like not lied, but shared something, some rumor, I don't think it's good. But of course, we know examples of Elon Musk who is doing it.
Exactly.
But then he also got in trouble many times for that. And so he had to buy Twitter actually and lose a lot of money because he said that he would do it.
But people say that Musk has a scale to sell a piece of wrap in the paper as a golden bar, something like this. But in this case,
he's a unique person in it, and I feel that his reputation is ruined now in many ways. Because of Tesla, Starlink, Ukraine, and other things. So, not sure it's a good example.
Final question from my side. Regarding the USA, as far as I know, those mass media are splitted in supporters and Democrat supporters, mostly. Is it true? And does it influence all the news and all the reports placed at this mass media?
Well, it's partly true, but I guess it refers more to politics. So, of course, we know that Fox supports Republicans and Trump, and actually Trump was using Fox as his channel of communications, and CNN historically has supported Democrats. But I believe that when we are talking about business news, it doesn't matter. And the journalists, the good publications and good journalists are trying to be non-biased and balanced. So they would cover business news from a business perspective without politics. But now you're right; it might get more complicated because we are approaching the elections, and those elections are not ordinary again, because we have two older candidates, and one of them is Trump. So it will be an interesting year ahead of us.